Mayor Matt Girding called the March 3rd, 2025 City Council meeting for the City of Somersworth to order. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Pepin.
Yep.
Vincent.
Here.
Gibson.
Here.
Parity Catanzaro. Here. Michaud.
Here.
Witham.
Here.
Goodwin.
Here.
Cameron.
Oh, she's excused. I apologize.
Barry. Here.
Always forget that that's my job. Councilor Barry will lead the council in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, next on the agenda is the recognition of our Indigenous peoples, our Native ancestral Americans. This meeting takes place on Indokina, which is the unceded traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land, waterways, living beings, and the Alnabuk, the people who have stewarded Indokina throughout the generations. Item 4 is any scheduled public hearings. We have none this evening. Item 5 is comments by visitors. Somersworth City Council and Mayor's Office welcome all visitors and encourage you to voice your opinions and views at council meetings. In accordance with Council Rules 7-C, a time limit of 5 minutes per person shall be in effect unless the council wishes to suspend the rules. Speakers shall not enter into a debate with any person, the mayor, council members, city manager, or department heads. Is there anyone who wishes to speak this evening? Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name and ward in which you live. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Sarah Lavoie. I am in Ward 4 under Crystal. And what else did you need?
Name and ward. So.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I'm all
good.
set.
Yeah.
All right, great. So I found myself a little unprepared this morning because I received an email from Crystal last evening. So, and it represented what I thought was a large change from how I understood things to have stood last time when we left. So I guess the first question that or first statement I need to state is a question. Is it my understanding correct that it is against the lawyer's wishes that the change be made to include off-leash dogs within all at-large dogs?
Unfortunately, we can't have a public conversation back and forth.
Oh,
but,
okay. Okay,
yeah,
that's
but
fine.
if you-
Everything that I have to say is kind of
Yes, I'm sure councils will be
okay.
taking notes also.
All right. So before I received an email from Councilor Parity Catanzaro last evening, I had planned on speaking on 3 things tonight. If the edits to leash laws are to be established to include all at-large dogs, there was an omission on what I had was page 29, but I think it was chapter 13, section 4 that needs to be amended. It currently states on A2, at large shall be intended to mean off the premises of the owner or keeper unless accompanied by the owner. Unless accompanied by the owner needs to be struck for the law as Councilor Parity Catanzaro's amendments to be complete and non-contradictory within the definition of running at large. The second thing that I wanted to speak about was that on the 2nd of January 2025, New Hampshire House Bill 670-FN was introduced in New Hampshire to raise the minimum fine for attacks by nuisance dogs. I do have a paper copy with me with the URL and would like to introduce this into record. The fines run now from $100 to $1,000 plus the cost of medical bills for various numbers of offenses. As someone who has not only had their dog be injured by another at-large dog, however we are terming that now, but also representing Jackie Deming, who could not be here tonight but was here at the last meeting, and I, who both had our dogs attacked by the same dogs, I would like to see our fines be raised in harmony with these. I have that if you want to take it.
Actually, if you'll start it on this end, then it can be sent through the council. They can take a look one at a time, and then we'll have it held with the city clerk, if that's okay.
My last concern was a question to pose. And I know we can't discuss this, but How are we going to make the citizens of Somersworth aware of these changes? Since the last city council meeting, I have been approached by no less than 2 at-large dogs, neither leash nor under voice control, so this is clearly an epidemic. Unfortunately, now I come before you tonight after spending last night sleepless, reflecting on the lack of change regarding something as simple and essential as a leash law in Somersworth, as I have been told that such a change cannot be made due to New Hampshire statutes. I am requesting that you reinstate the leash law edit to pertain to at-large dogs, and also consider increasing the fines for repeat offenders. Mr. Jeremy Rhodes has done some research and is going to present new and pertinent information about other cities in New Hampshire that I hope we can follow. While there are many troubling events happening beyond our city's borders, the situation hits very close to home. Many people encourage us to seek change at the local level, yet my experience here has left me disheartened about engaging in local governance. I've simply tried to protect my family. Yes, I consider my dog family, regardless of how the law sees him. And all I've asked for is a simple change that would keep everyone safe. In response, I have been met with the belief that the right to let a dog roam freely outweighs the right of others to feel safe. My dog, Apollo, is nearly 13 years old now. When I first brought him home as a puppy, he loved everyone, dogs and people alike. But since August of 2012, he has been attacked by off-leash dogs in this city more times than I can count. He has become fearful, defensive, and aggressive to other dogs through no fault of his own. This drift towards highly protective behaviors was due to repeated encounters with poorly controlled off-leash dogs. I wish I had taken action after the first incident, but at the time, I didn't fully realize how thoughtless some dog owners could be. It kept happening, and it wasn't until a terrifying encounter in February of 2024, which I spoke about last time, when 2 attack-trained German Shepherds came at us, that I truly understood the need for change. After that incident, I was left holding my dog, shaken and crying in the street. Apollo is now fighting cancer. A single attack could cause irreversible harm, potentially ending his life in a very painful and traumatic way. I've spent years trying to protect him and him me, but now more than ever, I need to do everything I can to keep him safe. When I spoke with an officer at the Somersworth Police Department, I was told that I have every right to protect my property, as dogs are unfortunately seen, in any way I see fit. I would never want to take drastic measures, but the reality is that I feel desperate. It shouldn't have to come to that. No one should have to live in fear while simply walking their dog. I urge you as our city leaders to consider the well-being of all citizens, humans and animals alike, and enact the leash law to all off-property or at-large dogs as previously proposed that prioritizes safety over convenience. The cost of inaction may not be immediately obvious, but the consequences are real. We are asking for a basic measure to keep our community safe. Please do what is right.
Oh, thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to let you know you're at your 5 minutes, but it looks as if you're finished. So thank you. I apologize for the interruption. All right. Thank you so much. Are there others wishing to speak this evening? Thank you. And again, if you could state your name and ward in which you live.
Good evening. Jeremy Rhodes, Ward 2, Mr. Vincent's ward. Members of the council, city staff, appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. Full disclosure, I've known the Lavoys for a number of years. Sarah and I met back when we were UNH students, more years ago than I like to count. I am speaking on the same piece of ordinance, and having seen Apollo from the time that he was a puppy who could literally fit into a sink until approximately a decade later, I have seen the change in his behavior over the years. I also know several members of the council have had uncomfortable contact with both off-leash dogs and the owners of those off-leash dogs in the city. It's my understanding at the last meeting, a message that I had sent over to Ms. Perez-Canzaro was read into the record by Mr. Vincent. I'd like to follow up on that note. I did do some research on several other cities in New Hampshire, multiple of them, including Manchester, Concord, Portsmouth, and Nashua, all require dogs to be on leashes. Of those cities, only one extends a penalty beyond what the state permits, and that city is Nashua. I'll send through the council as well, printouts from the relative sections of Nashua Code.
Thank you.
To paraphrase those for reference, Nashua, over the course of a number of years, first required dogs to be on leash in the city or restrained in a carrier or some other conveyance, and then at a later date, approximately 3.5 years ago, struck the specific penalties for offenses in that case, referring them to the standard city penalty, which is a fine of $1,000 or a citation. That has stood for approximately 3.5 years. I believe the exact date was November 21st of 2021. We're faced with a choice with this piece of legislation. My understanding is that the lawyer's comment was that we could either institute a leash law or increase the fines. By not instituting a leash law but increasing the fines, we create a situation where cleaning up after a nightmare scenario of somebody or an animal being attacked becomes more bearing on the owner of the dog that attacked. If instead, by instituting a leash law and then matching our city penalties to those of the state, we could institute a piece of public safety legislation which instead enforces safety rather than making cleanup more onerous than it would be otherwise. I would advocate that the council take a second step back, look at this piece of legislation, and instead institute a leash law that requires affirmative control. This creates a situation where the law that actually has, pun intended, teeth that our city police officers could enforce, one that does a better job of securing the safety of both residents and their animals in this city, and creates a situation where we hopefully head off problems before they become problems, rather than trying to clean them up after the fact. We would not be the first city in this state to do so. Numerous others have taken this action years to decades ago, and they face a better situation than we do as a result. This is a chance to correct a long-standing lapse in our judgment as a community and create a better situation in the years going forward when we will see our population density increase, not decrease. Thank you.
Thank you. Others wishing to speak this evening? Thank you. Again, if you could state your name and ward in which you live.
My name's Richard Brooks. I live at 18 Linden Street in Ward 1. I wanted to speak to the special election that you are going to be setting hours for. I've worked the elections for about 10 years, and I find that 7 to 7, I would urge you to set it at that set of hours. It's easy to remember, 7 to 7. You know, when you do 8 to 7, is it 7 to 8, 8 to 7? It makes it a little more confusing. So I find that the 7 to 7 is just clearer, simpler. It gives you an entire half of the day to do this. And it's just simple, easy to remember. Another thing that I'd like to remind voters is we had a law passed in New Hampshire that has tightened our voter requirements for newly registered voters. If you are registering to vote, you will have to have an ID and proof of citizenship, which means either a birth certificate, passport, or naturalization papers to register to vote. If you don't bring these, there's no more affidavit like they used to provide. You'll have to actually go home and get the proper documentation to register. Obviously, if you're moving in state, that's null and void. It's only for out-of-state residents that have moved in and need to register. And if you're already registered, again, no real worry, but you do have to have an ID. There's still no more affidavit for any ID. So just some things I'd like to make sure the residents are aware of, and if the city can pass that along, because I think this is going to be a certainly troublesome election because of this. I think it's a common sense move that we've made. When you look at the fact that 1 in 8 people in this country are not citizens, it's well worth verifying citizenship, and I'm glad they've done this, but I also want to make sure people are aware of that so they come prepared if they need to register to vote. And again, please consider the 7 to 7. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak this evening? Else? All right. Thank you so much. That'll bring us to item 6 on the agenda, which is approval of the consent calendar. Chair will obtain a motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes the minutes of the City Council meeting held on February 18th. Councilor Pepin. Councilor Pepin moves for the consent calendar be approved as presented, seconded by Councilor Gibson, I believe I saw. Thank you. Question before the council is the adoption of the consent calendar. If you're in favor of the motion, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying no, or nay, excuse me. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Ayes have it. Consent calendar is adopted. Thank you. Brings us to item 7, which is comments by city councilors. Are there any comments by councilors this evening? Councilor Party Catanzaro?
Yes, thank you. Before I make further comment, I wonder if we could just, if the city clerk or city manager knows if that is true about the ID plus birth certificate, et cetera. It is.
Yeah.
Okay. I did know about the waiver going away, but I thought a license was still a thing, so.
For new registration, yeah.
Thank you, Richard. That's good information to know. Just to address the dog park stuff a little bit, because I don't want to put all of the conversation here, because we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. First of all, I'm sorry to hear, Sarah, that you're discouraged about engaging in the public process. That is definitely not the outcome that we want. I do hope that we can come to an agreement that is satisfactory. You noticed something that I didn't in the last meeting, which was that our definition of at-large did still include a company. This was brought up by the city manager and the lawyer who looked at it. So I realized that my amendment last time did not do what I intended it to do, which was to, enact that leash law, which I think was at least partially supported by some of my colleagues. I do think after the legal opinion from our last Public Safety Committee meeting, I would like a little bit more clarity, knowing that some other cities have been able to do what it felt like we understood to be something that we couldn't do. If this law does pass, or I don't know if it has passed, that was introduced this year, I believe it would automatically, and again, we can discuss it more at the time, it would automatically raise hours. I think currently ours is higher than the state's, and so if the state goes up, ours would too, which I think we are all in favor of. It is a good thing. So I'll save the specifics for the update on that bill, but I didn't want it to go too far before thanking you both for coming and saying that hopefully we'll be able to address this in a good way. Thanks.
Councilor Vincent?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I just want to be clear, the way that I took it was that if you set, and we'll talk about this coming up here, if you set the ordinance more stringent, as in fines, it might not be upheld. I think that's what the police chief said, because the state would only allow it only $50. But since it's going to change, that looks like that's in your court. Thank you for bringing that to us and sharing your concerns. Okay, I'm going to switch gears here and talk about budget season, thing we all like. So I've been in contact with some constituents that have been contacting me. And I think what really, how they're discouraged here is that the increase is so great. Nobody likes an increase. And with today's economy, with everything that has gone up, it just seems to be another thing that has to happen here. However, their concerns were that they weren't prepared for this. Yeah, they knew that an evaluation was coming, a reval, but they weren't prepared for such a drastic increase. And I have heartburn with this because, well, when you escrow your money for your home, like probably 80% of us do, we have a bill every month that includes our taxes and our mortgage. So if you, I'm going to use one example, the $1,700 constituent that called me. When you increase that bill by $1,700, it's not like they get it right away. You have the option to paying it right away, but typically it goes over a year. So because of such a drastic increase, they actually have to double the amount of escrow. So it puts a real burden on people who are on fixed incomes and working hard enough as it is. I think I feel worse or bad. I mean, I feel bad about everybody that has to pay more taxes. I really do. But listen, it keeps our city moving, keeps our roads going, keeps our good employees here. But it's the people in the mobile homes, manufactured homes. You know, you take a 1970 Crestwood mobile home, currently in Sherwood Glen Trailer Park. That mobile home probably sold for $20,000 45 years ago. But because the assessed value is now $80,000 or even more, $150,000 on a 1970, it's only based on what really the economy is kind of doing. So what's that mean? That means here we are, the people that live in New Hampshire that have been here their whole life. All of a sudden, things are good here in New Hampshire. We got jobs working, maybe better than some other parts of the country. So you then have a sudden influx of people who come here and want to live here and want to work here. Supply and demand. So the supply and demand keeps coming, and that 1970 Crestwood mobile home can be almost $300,000. I don't write the rules. The state kind of puts it out. It's just discouraging because it used to be that if you wanted to have the American dream, which is a home, you started with a mobile home and then you could work your way up. But now these people are attacked. It looks like we're going to search out every corner and nobody's going to be unscathed, so to speak. It's kind of tough. So now we're here with our new budget we're coming into. And we have the school wanting $2 million. And we have the city needing their side. I think we should give our constituents a break. I've been saying this for 6 years here. We need to give our constituents a break. And I'd like to propose to the council, let's do a 0% increase on our taxes this year. We can do some work. I'm going to sit down with Scott Smith in the next couple of weeks. And for every meeting, I'll report where I think we should cut. You know, us here as councilors, we come in and we sit down on a Saturday and bing, bang, boom, it's all done. You know, I think we can make some significant cuts that won't hurt us too much. And one of them, and I'm on the committee and I'm sorry, is road resurfacing. We could probably gain $900,000 right there. Our roads are in great shape because this council under Mayor Hilliard took a stand 10, 15 years ago and did these improvements. Am I saying get away from it? No, I'm not. I'm just saying, look, let's give our people, our constituents a break. Going up, going up, going up. I understand what costs are. But if I ran my business like this, no one would come to my store. You know, we have to give our people a break. I think the schools have gotten everything that they wanted the last couple of years, 6 to be exact. And the educational funding isn't as good as it should be. But I think the schools should say it's 0 too. And maybe it's time to look at the school system. We cut 450 students 6 years ago, or 6 years or plus. And we didn't do any compensation for those 650 children or kids that were in the school. Look, I'm not saying take an axe to all our programs. I'm just saying, hey, for this year, we're $7.99 for a carton of eggs. And, you know, they just say, oh, it's the bird flu or whatever it is. Yeah. When prices go up, they may come down, but they're not going to go down to the $2.89 it was. Please, councilors, try to follow me and maybe we can take a stance and at least help out our constituents in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councilor comments? Councilor Witham and Councilor Barry.
Thank you. Brought a couple of props with me tonight. It's been a while since I've used any props in council chambers, but I thought appropriate tonight. And after the beginning conversations of our meeting here tonight, I think they're even perhaps more appropriate than I thought. I don't know about my fellow councilors or those watching at home or those here in the room, but for me, the world right now feels pretty heavy. Don't ask me to define that. I just feel that it's heavy. And this is what this cover represents, this circle. This is the circle of our concerns, and it's the largest Tupperware lid that was in our cabinets at home. If I could have found a bigger one, I would have, because I think the circle of concerns that we all have is ginormous right now. Whether it's the price of eggs or bird flu or wildfires in California, the Gaza Strip, tariffs, special elections, the upcoming city budget, things in our personal lives, the ability to pay our taxes, the ability to stay in our homes, the homeless population, the measles outbreak in Texas. I mean, I could go on, but we have a time limit for our meeting here tonight, so I won't. That's this lid. And again, I think this one is small, right? Our circle of concerns, all of us, is huge. It's ginormous. This other lid that I brought with me, which I think is way too big, but for television I needed something that people could see. It's probably the size of a pencil lead, maybe even smaller, is the circle of our influence. You put the small circle on top of the big circle, and what that says is the stuff that we worry about every day as counselors, as human beings, as Americans, is huge, and there's very little we can do about it because we can't influence much of it. I think that matters as we enter into discussions about so many things here at the local level. This is where we can have some influence. The minute it gets to a state House bill or Senate bill, one was just circulated around, that influence is tiny, tiny, tiny. It's microscopic. We've tried to influence things at the state level. It's not too far away. It's a 50-minute drive west. We can't. Imagine trying to influence something in Washington, D.C. You can't even see this lid anymore. It's too small. We cannot influence that. Now, if enough of us have that tiny little circle, maybe our level of influence grows a little bit, but never at the ratio that it needs to. Helps to keep me a little bit grounded right now with the world being so heavy. So I just share that with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barry.
Wow. That's kind of hard to follow. I know we'll talk about this in a minute on as part of another action item, but one of the reasons that was circulated and talked about in regard to the dog law, I think there's a ton of changes we would love to see at the local level. And part of the discussion we had last time that sent it back was a legal opinion on this. I love that other communities did enaction leash laws, but my concern with that is that it's not actionable at a court system because it would refer back to the state. So I don't want to do that, put hope on the books, and then find out we send it to court for multiple offenses, and they're basically going, I don't care what the local said, we're going by the state. I want us to be in line with what is actionable at the courts. I very much am happy that at the state they're going higher in fines because I feel like that's where it's going to hurt those who are breaking this law. If it hits their bank account, if it hits money-wise, that's going to help change it. So I do hope that will be there. But my only other thing was also that with tax season, budget season coming up, I think other councils have kind of touched on this. Sometimes we will have to take away. And I know I've said on the record a few times, if you have ideas where things can be cut, where we can do better, a lot of times when people want changes, it comes with a cost. And that hits the bottom line of our taxpayers. So just keep in mind, like either things have to be taken away or we can't do anything new or add. And it's a balance. Unfortunately, it's not a fun one. This will be my first budget season. I'm honestly not looking forward to this at all because it's heartbreaking to tell somebody they can't have something that they have every justification for. And it's going to be hard, especially this year. So that was it.
The rite of passage as a city councilor to not enjoy the budget. So do not worry. I don't think any of us do. Yes, Councillor Gibson and then Councillor Pepin.
Mr. Vincent made some very good points, as did Counselor Whittam. Happen to be an owner of a mobile home. I know how hard everybody that lives in one got hit on this. And I can pay my bill. Okay, I'm not going to be looking for a new home because of it. But the one thing that people don't seem to understand is, yeah, maybe a place is worth $150,000, $200,000 that somebody paid $25,000 to $30,000 for. That's great, except for one problem. They can't go out and buy something to replace that, so they don't have an option to go somewhere else. And that's what most of the people that live in these mobile homes are looking at. They're there for a reason. And we need to think seriously about how whatever actions we take are going to affect people like that. And again, I'm not speaking for me, I'm speaking for people that I've talked to that live near me, and they are going to be hurting. Facing double and triple what they were paying previously on their taxes is going to hit them hard. So we need to be very careful about what we do this year. And I don't know if Mr. Vincent is correct. I'm sorry, Councilor Vincent is correct, but I would love to be able to have a zero increase. On the leash law debate, I only have one quick thing on that, and that's that I do not believe in voice control. You have to take somebody's word for the fact that they have voice control. There's no certification, there's no nothing to prove that. And I'm sorry, but there's an old saying, if their lips are moving, they're lying. And there's too many people like that, or we would not have this issue with dog attacks. I've had 2 dogs that have been attacked a long time ago, but I understand exactly where people are coming from with this. And we need to do the most to control at-large dogs that we can legally do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pepin.
Thank you, Mayor. When we first started, this is the first meeting that we had, the chief brought up ordinances from other communities, which basically he explained that state law is state law. I think when we took our oath over here, we said that we'd abide by state law as we got sworn into the city council chambers and whatever. Is one of the things that we're supposed to do. One thing that really bothers me the most out of this, as a dog owner, you're responsible for the public also outside of that dog. The public is supposed to become number 1. The dog comes number 2, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know the whole story about this, but if there's been, I don't know how many times the police department's been called on this situation or whatever, because I've been completely out of that, but I would like to have a little foreknowledge of what's going on there. If a dog is being out of control that many times, the dog don't belong to being shut in with those people. That's how I feel about it. I think Councilman Witham made up the statement. State law is state law. I try to abide by state law as much as possible. Do I agree with it? A lot of it? No, I don't. I have my German Shepherd. He's 110 pounds. He stays in my yard, but I'm outside in my yard. I train him to be within eyesight of me, usually it's about 15, 20 feet. He's usually with me. I walk him. He's on a leash. I try to take care of him. I try to be respectful to the other people that bypass me and walk by me. Sometimes their dog is aggressive, sometimes mine growls back. But I try to have control over them. I do have control of them. I don't try, I do have control of them. It does bother me if this keeps on happening time after time, that person shouldn't have a dog. And I'd hate to say this, and I'd say this in all respect. No matter what law that we put out here, or if we change the laws here, that owner's still going to do the same thing when that law is here. And there isn't going to be anything that we can do about it, outside of waiting for the police department to do whatever they need to do if they do follow up. Now, that has to be reported to them also. They can't do anything if they don't know about it. So like I say, I don't know all the circumstances. All I know is that we try to do things legal, we ask for legal opinions, and like I said, the chief made it perfectly clear to us that some of the stuff in there, he thought if it was got taken to court, wouldn't fly, that we have to go by state law. That's what our lawyer is telling us. So when we do discuss that, this is basically where I'm coming from. My dog's been attacked when he was a pup. If he's attacked now, he can defend himself, which he basically, we had a dog not that long ago attack him, another German Shepherd almost the same size, but my dog was so fast he backed off. And my dog never even bit him. But that's my dog. I trained him. I was retired. I had the time to retrain him. My last shepherd before that was trained by me because was retired again. I could spend the time. I had the time. My other dogs were very, very good. They're not as good as these two were. So I guess I'll leave the rest for discussion.
Thank you. Other councillor comments at this time? Okay, seeing none. Will bring us to item 8, which is communications. We have none. Item 9, which is presentations of petitions and disposal thereof by reference or otherwise. We have none. And item 10 is the mayor's report. March is when the city council accepts the school budget from the school board and begins in earnest to discuss, debate, and finalize the city's budget. We've heard a bit of discussion from councilors about this tonight. As we enter into this budget process, I just want to highlight some upcoming dates for the council and for the community so folks can be aware of like when we will be doing things related to the budget. Thank you. Yes, I didn't know that. Thank you. On Monday, March 17th, which is our next regular scheduled council meeting, we will have the proposed budget introduced to council chambers. Like normal, we will normally do a first reading and then table that so that we can work on that going forward. That's the typical process for us. We'll then, on April 5th, have a community, this is a Saturday, community support organizations and city department budget review. That will be at 8:30 in the morning here in council chambers. Typically at that time, we go over any community organizations that are looking for support from the city in our budget. We also then review department by department the budget in its entirety and have the opportunity to ask questions as a council and make comments about the different sections. Again, would be a great time to highlight any areas that you would like to make changes or are looking at for changes so that the council can be aware in advance of our next meeting, which is when we, in theory, could debate and pass and amend the budget. So please, at that community meeting, have reviewed it and be ready to share out ideas and proposals. So our next meeting after that will be Monday, April 7th. We'll have a budget presentation at 6 p.m. from the city manager. And then at 7, we'll have a proposed budget hearing and regular council meeting. Next after that, we have a meeting on April 21st at 7. It's a regular council meeting. Again, possible that we could, in theory, pass the budget meeting before that, could pass it on the meeting at the 21st. And then we do have a special city council budget meeting if needed, if we haven't passed it, scheduled for 6 p.m. On April 28th, which is a Monday. So please take note of those. Again, those in the community who are interested in commenting or attending, We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the budget process. I think any and all guidance for council members is welcome and really appreciated. So please make sure to reach out via email, phone call, stopping by and making public comment. All are great ways to reach out to us. I also want to note that it looks like we are planning a special non-public meeting that we will hold on the 24th, Monday the 24th at 5. So please also note that as well. Unrelated to the budget, but just worth mentioning as well. All right. One final thing I want to add that was asked of me to kind of sneak in is from Councilor Cameron, who isn't here tonight, but she wanted to make folks aware that Don't Trash Somersworth is working on the 15th at the Willand Pond Trails to do some cleanup. Obviously, keep an eye on the weather. If the weather's not amenable, they won't be having it, but if it looks nice, they'll be there cleaning up. So feel free to join if you are free. And that concludes my report.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Just with regard to the budget process that
Yes,
you
sir.
outlined, typically the first meeting where the budget ordinance is introduced, we do typically suspend rules for a second reading at that meeting and then table it immediately.
After the second
That
reading.
allows us to have dialogue at the Saturday workshop.
Thank you.
Otherwise, we would not be able to have dialogue because it's only in first
Great
reading.
point. I appreciate the correction. Thank you. Good for folks to be aware of. Yes, thank you very much. All right, brings us to item 11, which is reports of standing committees. First up is Finance Committee. Councilor Witham.
No report of finance.
Thank you. Next is Government Operations Committee. Councilor Mishu.
We have not met, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next is Economic Development Committee. Councilor Goodwin.
No report.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee. Councilor Pepin.
Yes, I do have one. We met here February 26th here at City Council Chambers, 5 p.m. We had approval of the minutes of January 29th, 2025. Motion passed 5-0. All members were attending. The first thing was Ordinance 1525, Amendment, Chapter 13, Police Offense Dog at Large. As for our previous last council meeting, it was brought back to our committee to do some more research. Some of the research that we wanted was to contact our city attorney to find out the legal aspects of where we stood. She brought up 2 RSA laws. One was a New Hampshire RSA 46631, which basically dealt with penalties. The most we supposedly can charge is $50 per violation. And there was a deep discussion about that. The other one is basically connected to our dog language law, is basically RSA 46639. And we went into a long discussion about voice control, leash law, off premises, on premises. Basically, the lawyer informed us that we cannot put a violation on anybody that walks a dog as long as they're under voice control or if they're on leash. There's no way that we can put a penalty under the state law the way it's written. From that discussion, we went on, and there was a lot of discussion in between on the law. There was a motion to amend to Ordinance 1525, considering of only striking or depose of from Chapter 13, Section 4, dogs, G, C's or unleashed, dog, Section 1, and there was a motion to delete that. So that's where we stand on that right now. That was voted 4-0 to come to this council for debate. The police chief did also give us an update on the staffing on the police department. The 5 police officers are basically off their field training, except one of them still has a commitment to the military, so he's a little bit behind the other 4, so he'll be fully on his own in the near future. They do have an opening for 3 more police officers, and they do have an opening for a part-time and a full-time dispatcher's position that will be coming up. Did have a brief discussion on interviews, if there's high or whatever, it's a little light right now. The chief kind of like says it's probably because students are still in college right now that are probably going to graduate in that type of a field or whatever. So right now it's light trying to getting people that apply for the positions. Next police academy starts up in the summertime. As far as fire, Deputy Fire Chief Donopoulos was filled in for the chief. Michael Calabrese was promoted to lieutenant on July 27th. And Daniel Duquette was sworn in as a firefighter February 21st. So that kind of fills all the slots in the fire department, as far as I know. Let's see here. The committee on the aerial apparatus committee, they're on the process right now. In January, they started visiting other departments to look and see what type of apparatus they have and what type of equipment that would fit the city of Somersworth, so they have an idea of what they would like to put into the specs for the new ladder truck that probably will be in the future. We had an update on the grant position on confined space. Most of the stuff is starting to come in. The people are being trained on, the firefighters are being trained on it. It's being placed on the apparatus as they're trained and as they can locate it. Some of the stuff that they already have, they have battery portable lighting, ventilation, saw. All these things are battery operated, which makes it a little bit easier for the firefighters to set them up pretty quicker because they don't have to run extension cords. And also they don't have to worry about electrical circuits as far as getting electrocuted in water, firefighting with water and everything else, so it makes it a little bit more safety for them. And also the portable radios that have been on order, they're being shipped to the vendor, and hopefully as soon as they're programmed, they'll be back into the will be in service. He also wanted to thank the highway department. They've been out pretty straight cleaning highways, cleaning hydrants. The firefighters, the highway's been helping. And also some of the residents have been shoveling the hydrants, and he appreciated it and just wanted to mention it out. As far as EMS, Stewart Ambulance, Vice President Chris Hogan was on present. We had 165 calls, 130 transports in the month of January. The average response time is 4 minutes and 2 seconds. That's down. And basically, we had a slight discussion of basically the type of calls that they were receiving. So it was just about what types of calls they were receiving. So we discussed that briefly. Under miscellaneous, we had there was a question to the city manager how the hiring of the new police chief was coming. He says he was still in the interviewing process, and hopefully before the Chief Macklin is retired, he hoped to have an announcement for it. So, and we ended at 5:28.
Thank you. Brings us to Public Works and the Environment Committee. Chairman Witham.
Thank you, Your Honor. Public Works and Environment met on February 19th. All members were present. Our first agenda item was to review the fiscal year 2025 road resurfacing bids. This is our pavement overlay project for the upcoming spring and summer. The city received 2 bids, one from GMI Asphalt out of Belmont, New Hampshire, and the other from Pike Industries. GMI Asphalt was the lowest and best bidder at $1,472,045. We have used GMI for the last couple of years now here in the city. City Engineer Hall and our Public Works Director Mike Babinski both spoke very highly of GMI. They have been very good to work with. Their work product has been excellent, and their delivery has been timely, where they get in and out of the city. They don't linger for months on end, as we've had with some other contractors in the past. So it is the recommendation of the Public Works and Environment Committee to move forward with awarding the bid to GMI Asphalt in an amount of $1,472,045 with a contingency of $27,955. There is a resolution for first reading before us in our agenda here tonight. For the public watching at home, the road resurfacing project includes Willan Drive from Route 108 to Commercial Drive. That is a complete rebuild of that roadway. So it's not just a shim and overlay. As council knows, we did bond that portion. The same is true for a small side street off of West High called Flynn Street. That'll be completely rebuilt. And then 2 roads for shim and overlay are Granite Way and Woodchuck Lane, located off of Rocky Hill Road. High Street from West High Street to South Street is also slated for road resurfacing, but we removed that from this bid, and it's part of our sidewalk project, which is currently out to bid, and we look to receive those bids in the near term. So that's work that we're hoping to award for this summer as well. As you might recall, the sidewalk project went out to bid, and we had no bidders, so we had to sweeten the pot a little bit to bring that project north of $1 million to get interested contractors to bid on it. So we'll wait and see the results of that. We continue to move forward with our wastewater treatment plant final design for phase 2 of our upgrades. Council has been briefed many times by Wright Pierce engineers on the phased implementation of improvements. Right now, we want to move forward with a pre-application to the state revolving loan fund to help us with a payback mechanism for the phase 2 improvements. The cost for the design, construction, contract administration, and inspection for phase 2 of the upgrades at the wastewater treatment plant is estimated at $22 million. So it's a sizable chunk of change. There is a resolution for first reading in our packet tonight to move forward with accessing the state revolving loan fund. As part of this discussion, we did have a discussion about our sewer rates here in the city. We have continually moved those up incrementally over the years, which positions us very well. Those will always need monitoring on a cycle of every couple of years to monitor where they should be. If there is any good news in all of these projects, even with these projects, our sewer rates are still far lower than many of our neighboring communities. And that's due in large part, and I thank city staff for keeping us well positioned and being mindful of rate increases gradually and incrementally over the years to posture us well for these improvements. We had a report out by Director Babinski on our water emergency interconnection with the city of Dover. Through a federal grant some years ago now, we constructed an interconnect facility in the vicinity of Willan Pond. It allows us to share our water with the city of Dover in the event of an emergency, and reciprocally allows the city of Dover to share their water with us in the event of an emergency. A couple of weekends ago, the city of Dover was losing over 2,000 gallons of water a minute. They were alerted to this water loss. They searched for many, many hours, almost an entire day, trying to locate the source of this water loss. It was a broken fire sprinkler line in the basement of a building alongside the Cachiko River, so the water was just going into the river. It was hard for anybody to notice, so once they noticed it, they were able to shut it off and correct it. But during that time, losing 2,000 gallons of water a minute, the city of Dover was being put into a dangerous situation, particularly if they had a fire. So the interconnect was activated for the first time since its installation. The city of Somersworth can provide upwards of 1,000 gallons per minute to the city of Dover. In this instance, we provided water at a rate of about 500 gallons per minute. In total, we provided just shy of 300,000 gallons of water to the city of Dover to help them deal with this particular emergency. I would also note that we provided some water and public works staff expertise in helping Dover to identify where the leak could be, and also in the activation of the interconnect. So thank you, Director Babinski, for those important efforts, and please extend that to your staff. So bottom line, it worked, and it worked well, so we were glad to help out in that way. The city of Dover will be reimbursing the city at the rate that has been established in the interconnect agreement. So if anybody's wondering about that, that does occur. We had a couple of miscellaneous items, none of which are worthy of reporting out here, and that'll conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, it's Recreation Committee. Councilor Cameron, who chairs the committee, informed me they had no meeting, so no report from them. Next on our agenda is item 12, which is reports of special committees. Are there reports of any special committees this evening? Yes, Councilor Berry.
I just wanted to give the council an update that the Historic District Commission meeting did happen. Nothing new there, but we are still moving forward with the plaque program. I'm hoping to have that finalized soon. We're working with a couple of non-for-profits and also the school to make this happen, and I hope to have that done shortly to present to council.
Thank you. Quite excited about that. Other reports of special committees? All right, seeing none, I will turn it over to the city manager to deliver his manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of council, I offer the following comments this evening. They're included in the written packet for this evening's agenda. Under unfinished business, ordinance 1525 regarding Chapter 13, police offenses, Section 4, dogs, to include dogs at large. As mentioned by the chair of the Public Safety Committee, they met on the 26th of February and voted to recommend one amendment, and I provided you a red line copy of that one amendment. As discussed at the committee level, I wanted to point out, I gave you a copy of the state law, RSA 466-3A, regarding penalties as it relates to progressive fines available for violations of the city ordinance. And that is cited in our ordinance now, so the police department can move forward to court for enhanced penalties. Now, the legislation that was just passed around will be effective January 1, 2026, and automatically will be we will be able to utilize those more enhanced penalties because we incorporated the RSA into our ordinances, is often advocated so that as state law changes, we keep up to date and don't have to track the state law and keep making amendments every year, every few years. So we do have that in there now. There's no reason to take action on that, in my opinion. Going down to new business, Resolution 4225, as mentioned by the Public Works Chair. They met on February 19th and voted to support staff's recommendation. And I did provide you a copy of City Engineer Amber Hall's memo, which indicated the two bids that were received and what those amounts were and the companies that submitted them. In regards to 4325, a new resolution to authorize the manager to file an application with the state revolving fund for a loan to fund wastewater facility improvements. Again, it was reported out by Councilor Witham as Committee Chair of Public Works and Environment. Excuse me, I attached a memorandum from Finance Director Scott Smith regarding this project and how it would move forward. I recommend a public hearing at the next regular City Council meeting on March 17th, and just made a note that this resolution will require a 2/3 council vote in order to pass when that comes before you for discussion and vote.
Hearing shall be scheduled without objection.
Resolution, thank you, Your Honor. Resolution 4425 regarding the manager accepting an easement from the American Legion Post 69 associated with the Constitutional Way Complete Streets project. I did provide you a copy of the draft easement that was prepared by City Attorney. You may recall a while back, you did authorize the manager to accept an easement for the same project. That was in regards to the streetlights there that needed an easement. This will be for benches and trash receptacles, and that's explained in Director Babinski's memorandum. 4525 is being forwarded by the E911 Committee, and again, Director Babinski provided you more information on that, and it was included in your packet. Just a quick informational item. Land and Community Heritage Investment Program, LCHIP grant award, and we've received a few of these over the last several years. Thank you to the Public Works Director and his staff and the cemetery trustees for moving these issues forward. I did provide you an email notification that we were awarded $62,500 to support the city's rehabilitation of the Ferber Chapel at the Forest Glade Cemetery. And again, Director Babinski outlined that we had done an assessment report several years ago, and this is one of those projects. We've already moved forward on one or two of them, and we have a few more to go. This is a 50% match, so we'll be coming back through committee to look for $62,500 to match this 50-50 match with the state grant award. Thank you, Your Honor. That concludes my comments.
Thank you. All right, brings us to item 13, which is nominations, appointments, and elections. Under nominations, appointments, and elections, in accordance with Council Rules 17, appointments, following nominees are up for appointment this evening. We have Kimberly Schoen for reappointment as a member of the Historic District Commission for a term of 3 years, and Elizabeth Nguyen for appointment as a member of the Historic District Commission for a term of 3 years. What are the wishes of the council? Councilor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to introduce both nominees into electing them.
Thank you. Councilor Vincent moves to accept the slate of nominees, seconded by Councilor Gibson. Motion for the council is to accept Kimberly Schoen for reappointment as a member of the HDC for a term of 3 years, and Elizabeth Nguyen for appointment as a member of the HDC for a term of 3 years. Discussion. Councilor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. Don't really know Elizabeth, but I know Kimberly Schoen pretty well. When I was on the fire department, I was a fire investigator, and I went to court with her, and she was actually for the defense on an arson case. And to be called back into court because the landlord, who the woman was on trial, was going to price gouge her for paying back, and just had a good rapport. She's got a good, she's a very educated woman. I don't say that just because she's an attorney. She has a common sense side. Then to be reintroduced to her again at the ZBA meeting about Elm Street, where the builders wanted to just axe all the historic requirements. And she came up here and she gave her heart and soul into the city because she cares about it. So that's why I'm all in favor of her. She's been in the community for years, and I just think she's a really good person. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Witham.
Just a clarification, 3-year terms, is that outlined in city charter, or how have we arrived at a 3-year term?
That's a great question. I'm going to defer to the city manager.
State law.
There we go.
Very good. I'll be abstaining. I'll be abstaining from this vote because I would rather the vote be bifurcated for each individual. I can't vote for two at the same time.
Understood. Thank you. Other discussion? Yes, Councilor Berry.
I was just going to mention that both of these that we're putting forward tonight have been very active in their role as the HDC. They give very thought-out opinions. It's very rare for them not to make a meeting, and if they do not make it, there is very significant reason why. Just wanted to give the council a little bit of history on that. They are very active. They're not showing up. They're not actively participating. There we go. That's the word. Thank you.
Thanks. Other discussion? Councilor Parity Catanzaro.
Yeah, I was just going to speak to Elizabeth for a moment. I do know her, and she's been very involved, as Councilor Berry said. She is an architect with an architectural firm down in Portsmouth, has been involved in our library project and other things, and I just think it's great to have that level of professional expertise on our HDC.
Thank you. Other discussion? Yes, Councilor Michoud.
Thank you, Anna. Today I gave a long and hard thought about Kimberly Schoen showing up on the be reappointed. And what came back is my thinking of what happened during the 85 Elm Street project. Initially, the people that came in front of her, right off the bat, before they even gave her a presentation, she came right out and says, I don't care what you say, I'm not voting for this. No. Not even before they even had a chance. I don't know what the problem was, if there's something personal between the two. But since then, and I probably thought about this today a lot more than I should have, I watch other meetings, HGC meetings. She does a very good job. She's very knowledgeable. And this is the only one incident with this one particular group. I don't know what it was, like I said. This is probably something personal. I don't know. Not my problem, not my business. But she has proven once again that she's very knowledgeable, like I said, and she knows what she's doing, and she cares about the city a lot. For these reasons, I'm just going to forget the past, and I will vote for her, because she deserves to be reappointed.
Thank you. Other discussion? All right, seeing none, we're going to do a roll call vote. City Clerk, will you please call the roll? If you are in favor, you'll state by saying yes. If you are not, you'll state by saying no.
Counselor Vincent,
Yes.
Gibson,
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro,
Yes.
Yes, sorry, I talked over a cough.
Michaud,
Yes.
Witham,
Abstain.
Goodwin,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Peppin.
Yes.
All right, it appears that the nominees have both been accepted. Thank you. That brings us then to other nominees. Under nominations, appointment, and elections, in accordance with Council Rule 17, we have two nominees that are up for just nomination this evening. We have Ken Hilton for reappointment as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Adjustments for a term of 3 years, and John Splain for appointment as an alternate member of the Planning Board for a term of 3 years. The appointees will stand in nomination until our next meeting. Brings us to item 14, which is items that have been laid upon the table. We have none. Brings us to item 15, which is unfinished business. First up, we have ordinances. We have ordinance 15-25, which is to amend Chapter 13, Police Offenses, Section 4, dogs, regarding revised definitions to include dogs at large, which did remain in public safety, but I just want to confirm that that's come out of committee and is ready. Great. With ordinance 15-25 out of committee, be ready for we actually had a second reading last time. It's open to further amendments. Are there any amendments this evening? All right, seeing none, I'll look for a motion on ordinance 15-25.
Make the motion accepted as presented.
Thank you, Councilor Pepin. Moves that resolution 15-25 be accepted, seconded by Councilor Parity Catanzaro. The motion for the council is on the adoption of ordinance 15-25. Discussion. Yes, Councilor Witham, sorry.
Thank you. I will not support the adoption of this ordinance as it exists. I tend to agree that voice control is not a reasonable control. I get that we had a legal opinion offered by the city attorney. That is an opinion. It is not a requirement. It is not often that we don't agree with the city attorney in their opinion, but in this case, I will, because there seems to be some contradictory evidence that has been presented to council, both at the last meeting, which I missed, and at the meeting here tonight. My earlier explanation with the Tupperware lids, this is an area where I think I have some influence, right? And we can get some control. Because dogs that are off leash, that are supposedly under voice control, I've not seen much evidence of that. And where do I get my evidence? I am not a dog owner. I will be very candid with everybody here. Up until late here in life, I had a fear of dogs, a phobia. I've gotten over that a little bit. I will actually pet Councilor Pepin's 120-pound German Shepherd. Trust me, that is a leap of faith, right? But I've moved the needle, right? I'm conquering this thing. I actually walked a dog on a leash for the first time this past summer, so that was a big deal, right? I'm not sure I'll ever own a dog, but I'm moving the needle, right? That said, I think many of you know that I spend countless hours up at the ball field at Noble Pines. 10, 15 hours a week, probably easy. There are more dogs that use the ball field there than use the dog park at Millennium Park. I promise you that. They are not on leash. They are rarely under voice control. By the way, we do have a city ordinance here that says that a dog can't even be on the ball field property because they also foul. And that is a very large field. And I can assure you that none of those dog owners pick up what their dogs have fouled. We find it when a ball player finds it, and then we scramble to pick it up, which is less than desirous. So I think we need to tighten up controls. But I say that with a degree of hesitancy because I worry about how that impacts our police department. I'm guessing that handling dog complaints, unless something terrible has happened, is not the sexiest endeavor for a police officer. I would argue that most police officers, if they see a dog on the ball field at the Noble Pines, turn their head the other way, they don't engage. I see it all the time, right? It is not of interest to them unless they are called. I've taken the approach to be sort of civil about this, and I'll approach dog owners that have their dogs running amok on the ball field, and I'll approach them and ask them if they saw the signs, if they're aware of the city ordinance, and most dog owners become confrontational with me. I walk away from that. I don't engage them any further. I don't call the police because I don't think they'll engage with it. It's not sexy. They're not going to do it, right? So I think we need to tighten up our ordinances, but I'm not sure it's going to help. So I don't know where I'm at with this, but I can't support it in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess I'll echo that sentiment. I kept quiet this evening because I knew this was going to be a lengthy discussion. But I guess I would say, first off, I have not seen the legal opinion, so I don't know if that can be furnished for the council at large. But while sitting here going through the documents, I looked up the RSAs. I'm not a lawyer. I read contracts all the time. I know a little bit of legalese. And I agree with Councilor Witham's assessment, and based on other communities that have adopted language, that, in this scenario, I just don't agree with the legal opinion. That, it makes sense that a community would be able to have a more restrictive policy. And the language that I saw in the RSA actually says that explicitly. So, yeah, I don't agree that it would be unenforceable. And even if in the downside scenario I am wrong, I feel more strongly that we need to be a leader on this and say this is what our values are, and we understand that voice control is not an appropriate in our community, not an appropriate way to control your dog. It is too urban of a community, it's too dense of a community for that to be an acceptable form of control. So I agree fully with Witham. I won't be supporting this in its version tonight. And I would also echo the sentiment that if we want outcomes here, then it's going to take a little more than just revising this and passing it and having no further action. Whether it's a signage package that goes out and is posted in areas such as ball fields in a more robust manner than we currently have, or working with the media to try and get a story about how we want to engage dog owners more actively. Getting the word out there is an effort, and it needs to be sustained. And council needs to lead on that in addition to just updating the ordinance. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we got Councillor Barry, and then I'll have it come over to this side. Councillor Gibson, Councillor Patton.
So I think I've kind of said this a bunch, that I would love to make this stricter, but one of my hesitations is just, I think we've seen it where if the state doesn't say we give the towns or cities this authority and we do enact this, my worry is that if somebody tries to enact this in a court system, and I think this is where I get frustrated with their court systems a bit, that they try to give more leniency when you finally get to that court, especially if you're in a conundrum of the two. So I love that they are passing a stricter fine, like I said, on this as well, because I do think that's one of those things where if it hurts their bank account, maybe they'll correct something. I don't know what it means to go against legal opinion. I don't know if we've done it in the past. I would be interested to understand that further. One thing I was going to suggest, because I also was very much in how do we let dog owners know of these changes? I know that being a dog owner in our city, we have to have licenses for our dogs. So I would say we have a list of dog owners and we have to reach out to them. And I would say whether it's an email or a letter to those dog owners that are licensed in our city should be getting whatever this change is that is decided, would be one way, again, I would say that we could go about educating our dog owners and hopefully that they comply. But I will stop there.
Thank you. I'm going to do Councillor Gibson and Councillor Pepin.
I'm going to follow in the footsteps of Councilor Whittam and Goodwin. I already stated, I don't believe in voice control because probably at least 50% of the people that you see on the street with a dog without a leash, I guarantee you that dog doesn't listen to him when he doesn't want to. And I just don't believe in encoding that into our ordinances. I would have one question. I know we've passed the amendment stage, but after hearing what's been said, is it possible to back up and strike that, have an amendment to strike that from the language?
Can you rephrase that? I'm sorry. To have which part stricken?
We can, if we could ask that the motion for the ordinance be retracted and we amend to strike the language.
We can. It's definitely in order to do that. I would be interested to see what other councilors have for discussion related to this prior to doing so. Maybe give folks a chance to comment before we jump
Your
to
Honor,
that.
just from a parliamentary
Sure.
perspective, as I see it here, we can vote to pass it as is. We can amend it further. We could defeat it, or we could table it. I suppose those are our options. If we were to amend it further, I do believe it would require us to do another public hearing because it is an ordinance and any substantial change would require that. I'm just sharing parliamentary what I think the options
Fair
are.
point. I think I'd also just personally, if we do make bigger changes, would like this to go back to committee. I know the committee's worked on this, and like any larger changes could allow for the committee to see them and have their I know the committee may or may not be tired of this, but I think that I'd rather do it right than have it be a mess, if that makes sense. But yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. So Councilor Pepin, you are up, and then we'll have the city manager. No other comments. Go ahead, Councilor Pepin.
Mayor, you beat me to death trying to bring it back to committee.
I know. Sorry. That's what committees are for. That's what they're for. I apologize.
You
but-
know, Mayor,
Earn your paycheck.
as far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't be debated here. It should be debated under the state RSA laws here that are being pushed on us. You know, I turn the TV on and you listen to the news, and it's like this everywhere. People make laws and then somebody else don't obey them, and they make their own laws. And I think that that's what's becoming here. And to be perfectly honest, true in life, I'm getting frustrated with it because there is no law, because everybody's making their own. So I guess that's where I stand. I do not know, Chief, Ms. Mayor, where any more changes can be done by our committee, to be perfectly frank with you.
Okay.
I think I'm just, and I encourage the people that are on my committee right now to speak up about it also right now. As I don't know how much more we can beat this to death and come to a comment, and then everybody here that comes up here to the city council will turn around and say, well, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the people have their dogs attacked or people being attacked in the city. Something should have been done. That's what's really tearing me off. If this is happening in our community, it shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't have to discuss this friggin' law because it should have been taken care of by police, fines, or whatever. Or those people shouldn't have a dog. It should be somebody else. And you can bring it back to committee and I'll have it again. And I don't know. You asked for a legal opinion. We did that. I don't know what else you expect us to do in committee. But please, Kenny, please comment.
Thank you. City Manager.
Yeah, I'll try to, first of all, my apologies. That was an oversight on my part. I should have sent out the emails, or more importantly, I should have went back to the city attorney for a more formal legal opinion. It was quite confusing over a couple of emails. It took the chief and I both on separate phone calls to try to wrap our arms around what she was telling us. But one thing the committee focused on that I recall, is the city attorney said you could make it a leash law, but because of another statute, 46631A, you could only penalize any violation $50. And the committee wrapped their arms around, we want the enhanced penalties for every violation. So if you could do a leash, but then you're only down to $50 a violation, where the committee thought it was more important to have the enhanced penalty in our ordinance so that we could punish repeat offenders, charge them with a nuisance or a menace and that sort of thing with those enhanced penalties. And now with the new law coming in about, I think I heard, I didn't totally read it in detail, but the enhanced penalty, I think, with medical bills and other things, which I thought is further argument to keep the enhanced penalties. So I just want to reel the committee back into what the focus was that I recall on why you went from one or the other.
We're going to do, yes. Don't you worry, I could not forget you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilor Vincent.
Thank
and
you,
then
Your Honor.
Councilor Barry, Goodwin, Witham. Yes, final thoughts.
Just one other.
Okay, yeah.
Just one other thing, because of the state law, what the attorney said also, although yes, I suppose there's exception to every rule. There might be a dog owner out there that can keep their dog under voice control and command, but if you had a leash law and a police officer saw an owner of a dog walking without a leash on the dog, we couldn't cite them. She wasn't, that was her opinion also. We couldn't cite them because the state law, if you keep it under voice control. And the other thing the committee talked about, and I think the chairman mentioned it early, changing the law isn't going to, the police, quite frankly, I have to agree with some of the comments. The police just have to be a little more diligent in taking any dog that runs off a person's property to court.
I don't mean to get a debate on this, but in theory, we could cite them if that individual then decided to challenge the citation in court. Right. They could win. Okay. All right, let me get my order correct. Vincent, Parity Kanzar, you have not spoken this round, correct? Okay, so we'll put you before those who are having a second term or time speaking. Any others who have yet spoken one time like to go? Okay, then we'll do Barry, Goodwin, Witham. Go ahead, Vincent. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
The counselor to my right is a little in despair right now. He's a great guy, though. And his heart is in the city. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is I'm sticking up for the police department. I guess we could, put council rules aside and have them come up. But let me just say this. Dogs that are attacking people and other dogs are very important. But probably 90% of them are just roaming around. And I'm sorry, but the police have a lot more to take care of. They got bigger fish to fry, so to speak, and I'm not trying to dismiss this whole dog thing. Now my opinion about the leash. If you have a leash law or you don't have a leash law, there are dogs who are going to escape. So that law don't mean anything. But I have to say, I do agree with the leash law. I think there's too many people that are out there with dogs that are just roaming around. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Parity Kanzaro.
Yes. My opinion going into this and after hearing from some folks had been that this particular ordinance as it stood was better than what we had. But I'm not sure that it is, as some folks were mentioning. I think this adds voice control explicitly in the law, where currently it's not really defined, so we perhaps might be under state law. I would support bringing it back into committee, just because we've talked about it once before. As one member of that committee, I have a few things that I would like to do, including, striking that language to for the at-large definition to no longer include voice control, so that we can give the lawyer, here's specifically what we want to do, and see if we can get a very clear answer from her. And also, look at these Nashua laws and there simply must be a way that we can do this. And if our fines go down a little bit, I still think it's better to have the leash law at least it's something to enforce instead of just waiting for something to happen. I was really compelled by the argument of let's do it proactively. So I would like to bring this back into committee to make those changes and get a really clear legal opinion, because I think it's the sentiment of the council that we are in favor of this and would like to act on it, but absent clarification from a lawyer, I don't know that we could do that this evening. And also, I would like it to be another public hearing because we are talking about changing it significantly.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Barry.
So I will say, going back to committee, from hearing the rest of the council, I will say we were kind of given a little bit confusing from the lawyer, but basically the way I came out of it was if you make any changes, it takes the fines down to 50, and that's all you can ever do. Multiple offenses, doesn't matter, 5th offense, 10th offense, it's only ever going to be $50. I was very hesitant to that because I'm one who, if you make multiple offenses, I want your fine to go up. Knowing that if we go back to committee, I think we really need to look, because if we are going to get rid of RSA 46631A, then now we have to define all of that. And I don't think those are defined now in ours, because if we lose that, we can't fall back on it with these changes. So I think we're looking at a very significant change to this. So I don't disagree if it goes back, but then I feel like we really have to do a huge change. And if everybody's okay with just $50, then I'll concede to that.
All right, thank you. Councillor Goodwin.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so I'm gonna, having not been at the committee and having not had a time to digest this legal opinion, I'm going to restate my understanding for my personal benefit and those at home. So my understanding is that the legal opinion is that we can have a leash law. There is a question in the legal opinion as to whether or not that would be enforceable in court. We can definitely have it. It's just questionable whether it's enforceable in court. Personal thought, I have no idea why it wouldn't be enforceable in court, because you're allowed to have more restrictive policy. So I'm willing to take that bet. The second item was, if we have a leash law, the way that the state regs are set up, it sets our default maximum fee to $50. So that essentially the opportunity cost for us to have a leash law is that we're limiting our fines to $50. That $50 amount may increase based on a state update to that policy, but it currently is set at 50. So that's my understanding of the ecosystem of moving parts. I agree with other counselors in saying that I prioritize the leash law over the $50 fine. I think it's important to set that precedent, to let them know that's where our values are. And the $50 fine is unfortunate. It would be great to have a bigger stick to deter people from poor behavior. But I will say, in the context of our large lid over here, in the American system, this is why Americans are considered so lawsuit happy. The government does not provide sufficient protections. However, you can take them to court. They're civilly liable. So if that person's dog causes damage to you or your dog, they are civilly liable. You can take them you can sue them. That is your recourse. So we as the town might be able to only fine them $50, but you as an individual can go after them for their harm to you. So I know that sounds ridiculous, and I don't like that system. That's not the system I want to live in, but it is the system we live in. So just to put that out there, that, it's not your dog is viciously attacked and has all these medical bills, and that person's only liable for $50 paid to the city of Somersworth. It's like, no, they are liable in civil court. You can sue them, and that is another recourse for you. It's a lot of work. I don't like that world. I'm just saying that's the world we live in. All of which to say, I agree. I think this needs to go back. We need to hear it again. I am putting it out there for those that are guiding the conversation that I'm strongly in favor of a leash requirement to the extent that we can play with the fee. Great, but I'm focused on the leash. To me, I think that's the critical thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rhythm.
Thank you. And if you don't like the legal opinion, when you go to look to sue somebody, you go find another lawyer whose opinion you might like, right? So just to tie that all together. I think just procedurally, if I'm reading the room, and I don't play poker either, right? But let me try here. I think there is a desire by council to have a leash law, to have dog on leash, albeit not penalize maybe as seriously as we would like. I think we prefer having the dog on leash and not voice command. That is a significant change to this. If we send it back to committee and this comes out of committee, that gets brought up at a council meeting, it would then be scheduled for a public hearing. So we're 2 meetings away, which is the normal process for any new piece of legislation. My desire is to vote this down tonight in its entirety and start anew. I mean, committee can usually use this as guidance, right? And kind of can copy and paste from it. But I think as we continue to try to muck with this, I think it's just messy procedurally. I'd rather vote it down and start over with all of this in mind. So that's where my mind is versus sending it back to committee.
I think that's an interesting point. My one question, which I guess will be for our chair, is are there components of this that would conceivably end up in a leash law type ordinance or resolution change, ordinance change, that you would want to keep? Therefore, is there reason not to vote this down tonight?
A lot of stuff that I like to keep in. There's a lot of stuff that I like to change. My problem is that I feel that I feel this is a state problem, not a city.
Marty, make sure your mic's on. I'm sorry.
I feel that this is more of a state problem than it is a city problem. I think that ordinance ought to be changed instead of our ordinance being changed. That's personally where I come from. But I'll take it back to committee. But there's some things that, you know, we try to change the language that the police officer is in, you know, we don't longer have a dog officer. There's certain wording in there that needs to be put in there. To be perfectly honest with you, I think us dealing with the chickens were a lot easier than this one. But I don't know. I really, my whole headache is that I'm worried about the RSA law for the state. That's why I'm gulping at, okay? You bring it back to committee, we'll attack it again, but I don't know. I'm just frustrated. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse.
Fortunately, it seems even if we defeat this, you will still have some form of it at committee level.
And not only that, I'd like to pass something that will, if it does go to court, it stands in the city's favor. I just don't want to have something reappealed back. I think that's what I'm really concerned about. I don't want to turn around and have to hire a lawyer to go back to court to fight for something that we probably know is going to get defeated. And I guess that's where I'm concerned. And so bring it back to committee, we'll beat the dead horse.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you for your willingness and flexibility. If there's no more discussion, it seems like there are. So, yes. We'll go to those who have comments first. We'll go Councilor Parity Catanzaro, then Goodwin, and then we'll wrap this up. How's that?
Thank you. I do think there may be some value in keeping this ordinance alive, just because part of it was to define at large, and I think there were a few other clarifications that would have made it easy. I think my proposal is going to be to strike or accompanied, or, you know, whatever that language is that made at large include that, and just make sure that it only includes a leash and a clear opinion from the lawyer. I just wanted to address a couple of things too about, there was a question about, you know, how do we let people know this? If we do pass a leash law, regardless of what happens with a fine, we can put up signs similar to neighborhood watch, speed limits, etc., in a few visible places that say leash your dog, it's the law. We can, you know, ask our police, similar to when there's a speeding problem on a certain street, they'll beef up their patrols. You know, we can ask for a period of time that this really be a priority, even if it is, you know, as long as it's not obviously taking over something else that's happening at the time. But I just think that there are really good benefits to changing those things. We can let the public know about it, and that's all.
Thank you. All right, Councilor Goodwin, and then I think we're gonna wrap this up. Go ahead.
Yes, great, thank you. I guess a process question relating to the legal opinion. I work in private business. I use lawyers all the time. Councilor Witham's point. Sometimes you work with an attorney that you disagree with, and you find a different attorney that understands the objective of what you're getting at and helps you figure it out, rather than just saying you can't do that. And I think, and again, I don't know procedurally how this would work in the context of municipal government, but what I would do if this were business is I would write down clearly what my intended terms were in a couple bullets. I want a leash law. I want it enforceable. I want the highest fine that I can have, ... Hand it to the lawyer and say, draft me an ordinance that is enforceable. And if that person says, I can't do it, then I want a very specific reason why, and I might then seek a second opinion. So I guess I'm deferring to those that procedurally understand how this works better than me, but rather than us non-lawyers draft things that we think try to get at what we want, why don't we just ask the lawyer, give them our intent, and ask them to draft it for us so they are giving us something that they think is enforceable.
Thank you. I think there's some things that the committee could do in tandem with our city lawyer that would help kind of guide the process. So yes, I think after hearing from our chair and members from the committee, it sounds like they are willing to have this in its current form be sent back to them.
Motion to re-refer to committee.
Thank you. Motion to re-refer to committee, seconded by Councilor Gibson. Do I dare even open to discussion? I kid. Discussion. All right, the motion on the table, discussion point, Councilor Gibson?
Yeah, I'll agree to send it back to committee, but I want to apologize to the councilors on the committee before we do it.
Thank you. I think the committee has good guidance from today's meeting. I will, my comments will be, please use today's meeting as guidance to help you formulate our final draft. Please take whatever time you need. If it means it's multiple meetings, that's more than fine. Again, it's going to likely end up coming back for a public hearing in a new form, which means the public will be made aware. Public, please pay attention. It might not be our next meeting. It might be future meetings after that. But I would like whatever version comes back to be the final version, please. If I can ask that at all, that would be great. All right. So, a motion on the table is to re-refer to committee. We're just going to do a voice vote on this. If you're in favor of the motion, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Oh, sorry. No. Looks like the ayes have it. So, again, back to committee. Please take your time. Much appreciated. Good discussion. I know it's difficult sometimes, but it always ends up to our benefit. Thank you. All right, that brings us to our resolutions under item 15, agenda item 15. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on resolution 40-25, which is a council vote to dissolve the Mental Health and Wellness Committee. City Clerk.
Resolution number 4025, council vote to dissolve the Mental Health and Wellness Committee.
All right, thank you. Resolution 40-25, having been read a first and second time, is now open to further amendment. Seeing no amendment being offered, I will look for a motion on resolution 40-25. Councilor Gibson.
I move that we accept as presented.
Councilor Gibson moves for the adoption of resolution 40-25, seconded by Councilor Vincent. Motion for the council is on the adoption of resolution 40-25. Discussion. Okay, seeing none. If you're in favor of the adoption of resolution 40-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you're not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Good job. Resolution 40-25 has been adopted. Thank you. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on resolution 41-25. Council vote to dissolve the Sustainability Committee. City Clerk.
Resolution number 4125, council vote to dissolve the Sustainability Committee.
Resolution 41-25, having been read a first and second time, is now open to further amendment. Seeing no amendment being offered, I will look for a motion on resolution 41-25. Councilor Gibson.
I move that we accept as presented.
Councilor Gibson moves to the adoption of Resolution 41-25, seconded by Councilor Vincent. Motion for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 41-25. Discussion? All right, seeing none. If you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 41-25, you'll state by saying yes. If you are not, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Counselor Gibson.
Yes.
Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes, sorry.
Pepin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
All right, Resolution 41-25 has been adopted. All right, brings us to agenda item 16, which is new business. We have 4 resolutions this evening. Chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 42-25 to authorize the city manager to contract with GMI Asphalt, Inc. of Belmont, New Hampshire for fiscal year 2025 road resurfacing improvements. City Clerk.
Resolution number 4225, to authorize the city manager to contract with GMI Asphalt, Inc. of Belmont, New Hampshire for fiscal year 2025 road resurfacing improvements. March 3rd, 2025. Whereas the City Council adopted Resolution 2025 on December 9th, 2024, authorizing the city manager to prepare and request bids from qualified contractors for road improvements to the following city streets: Flynn Street reconstruction, Willen Drive reconstruction, Granite Way Mill overlay, Woodchuck Lane Mill overlay. And whereas the Public Works and Environment Committee reviewed the results of the bids received with city staff and recommends contracting with GMI Asphalt, Inc. for an amount of $1,472,045, and whereas the Public Works and Environment Committee recommends including a contingency in the amount of $27,955 for the project and allow the city manager to increase the contract to an amount not to exceed $1,500,000 if needed, and it is determined to be in the best interest of the city. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to contract with GMI Asphalt, Inc. of Belmont, New Hampshire to make road improvements to the aforementioned city streets for a cost of $1,472,045, and be it further resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that an amount of $27,955 is included with the project total for contingencies, and the city manager is authorized to increase the contract to an amount not to exceed $1,500,000 if needed, and is determined to be in the best interest of the city. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Kenneth S. Vincent, Laura Berry, Martin Pepin, approved city attorney.
Thank you. Resolution 42-25, having been read a first time, will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting. The chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 43-25, which is a vote to authorize the city manager to file an application to the State Revolving Loan Fund for a loan to fund wastewater facility improvements. City Clerk.
Resolution number 4325, vote to authorize the city manager to file an application to the State Revolving Fund for a loan to fund wastewater facility improvements. March 3rd, 2025. Whereas the City of Somersworth, after thorough consideration of the importance of maintaining the city's infrastructure, including but not limited to the wastewater treatment facility, has been implementing a phased approach generally described as the improvements of the Somersworth wastewater facilities treatment process, and has determined that additional disinfection, secondary filtration, septage receiving, and nutrients removal is desirable and in the public interest, and to that end, it is necessary to apply for a loan from the State Revolving Fund in the amount of $22 million. And whereas the City of Somersworth has examined and duly considered the provisions of RSA 486:14 and the New Hampshire Code of Administrative Rules, Chapter ENV-WQ 500, which relate to loans from the State Revolving Fund, and deems it to be in the public interest to file a loan application and to authorize other actions in connection therewith. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that 1, the city manager is hereby designated as the authorized representative of the City of Somersworth for the purpose of filing an application for a loan in accordance with New Hampshire Code of Administrative Rules, Chapter ENV-WQ 500, furnishing such information, data, and documents pertaining to the applicant for a loan as may be required. 2, that if such loan be made, the city manager is the authorized representative of the City of Somersworth for the purpose of signing any documents pertaining to the disbursement of funds to the City of Somersworth. 3, that if such loan be made, the city of Somersworth agrees to repay the loan as stipulated in the loan agreement. 4, that a certified copy of this resolution shall be included as part of the application submitted for a loan. 5, the city manager is authorized to sign the loan agreement binding the city of Somersworth to the terms and conditions of the loan. 6, that if such loan be made by the city of Somersworth agrees to make provisions for assuming proper and efficient operation and maintenance of the facilities after completion of the construction thereof. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Kenneth S. Vinson, Martin Pepin, Laura Berry, approved city attorney.
Thank you. Resolution 43-25 having been read a first time will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting, at which time a public hearing will be held. The chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 44-25, which is to authorize the city manager to accept an easement from the American Legion Post 69 associated with the Constitution Way Complete Streets project. City clerk.
Resolution number 4425, to authorize the city manager to accept an easement from the American Legion Post 69 associated with the Constitutional Way Complete Streets project, March 3rd, 2025. Whereas the city is reconstructing Constitutional Way as part of the Complete Streets program detailed in the annual capital improvement program. And whereas, as part of the Complete Streets project, the city will be installing pedestrian amenities, including benches and trash receptacles. And whereas, on the east side of the street, the city will need one easement to install the pedestrian bench and trash receptacles that will allow the city to properly maintain the sidewalk during winter operations. And whereas the easement is a permanent easement acquired from the American Legion Post 69 on property located on Constitutional Way with a parcel ID of 10-168. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to accept the aforementioned easement associated with the Constitutional Way Complete Streets project. Sponsored by Councilors Nancy Cameron, David A. Witham, Paul Goodwin, approved city attorney.
Thank you. Resolution 44-25, having been read first time, will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting. Chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 45-25, which is the naming of Wellington Place and assigning addresses as required. City clerk.
Resolution number 4525, naming Wellington Place and assigning addresses as required. March 3rd, 2025. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the following road be named and addresses assigned as required. Name Wellington Place. Explanations. 1. The name was suggested by the developer of the 15 Blackwater Road National Guard property development. 2. Park Terrace from Blackwater Road to the new development driveway will be renamed Wellington Place. 3. The E911 committee recommended and approved the name at their February 5th, 2025 committee meeting. 4. The name is required to be in compliance with E911 standards. State E911 officials concurred that the proposed name is in compliance with E911 standards. 5. Wellington Place will be a private road. 6. The developer will be required to install a street sign and a private way sign per city condition of name acceptance. Be it further resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that this action is in accordance with RSA 231:133, RSA 231:133-A, RSA 106-H, State of New Hampshire, Department of Safety, Division of Emergency Communications, Addressing Standards, and Chapter 19, Section 23, City of Somersworth Ordinances. Sponsored by Councilor Martin Pepin, approved city attorney.
Thank you. Resolution 45-25, having been read a first time, will remain in first reading until our next regularly scheduled meeting. Brings us to other. Under other tonight, we have a vote to set polling hours for the May 6th, 2025 special primary election and the June 24th, 2025 special general election. Due to a resignation by one of our New Hampshire state representatives, we and Rollinsford both need to host a special election on the same day per state law in order to elect a replacement for this position. The dates of the special election that I just read were set by both the governor and the executive council at their most recent meeting, and thus we tonight need to make it official by setting polling hours. So in order to, I think, kind of just get a time for what we're feeling, I will first actually open up to discussion if folks want to propose some times, then accept a motion on a time that we feel fits best. So discussion on when we would like to have this open. Councilor Parity Catanzaro, I think I saw a hand.
Yes, I would propose 7 to 7. I think we've had this conversation quite a bit, and for the sake of consistency, especially where special elections are already, it's a date out of order, I would propose 7 to 7. Makes sense. And we have that supported by somebody who came to talk to us tonight who works those hours.
Other discussion? You want to make a motion? I don't see any.
Yeah, I'll move to set the polling hours 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Councilor
I'll second.
Catanzaro moves to set the polling hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the May 6, 2025 special primary election and June 24th, 2025 special general election, seconded by Councilor Vincent. Again, motion before council is to set the polling hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for both the May 6 special primary election and June 24th special general election. Further discussion related to this? City Manager?
Yeah, just to mention, is my understanding, and city clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's only one person that signs up, we only have the one election and not the June election?
At least
one of each party. Yeah, one of each party, sorry. Yeah.
All right, it could mean we don't even have a primary. Councilor Witham.
A couple of meetings ago, I did not support the special election process. As I spoke about, if a city council or a school board member resigns midterm, we fill it and then we wait till the next election that is held to do that. It's fascinating that here we have the state yet again forcing something down on us that we have no control over. Back to my opening comments here tonight. Where we seem to be having this special election, this is not a vote on that, this is a vote on the time. So I will agree with the time, should be 7 to 7, though I don't agree with the process at all.
Thank you. Other discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're in favor of setting polling hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the May 6th special primary election and the June 24th special general election, you'll state by saying yes. If you are opposed, you'll state by saying no. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Parity Catanzaro.
Yes.
Michaud.
Yes.
Witham.
Yes.
Goodwin.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Pepin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Polling hours are set. Thank you. Yeah, look at that. All right, brings us to item 17 on our agenda, which is comments by visitors. Somersworth City Council and Mayor's Office always welcome and encourage visitors to voice your opinions and views at council meetings. In accordance with Council Rule 7-C, a time limit of 5 minutes per person shall be in effect unless the council wishes to suspend the rules. Speaker shall not enter into a debate with any person, the mayor, council members, city manager, or department heads. Anyone wish to speak this evening? Perfect. Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 18, which is closing comments by visitors. Councilor Goodwin, you're up first.
None.
All right, Councilor Barry.
I'm all talked out. None.
All right, Councilor Pepin.
None.
All right, Councilor Vincent.
None.
Councilor Gibson.
None.
Councilor Parity Catanzaro.
None.
Councilor Michaud.
None.
Councilor Witham.
Some.
Some. We'll take some.
One comment. So as the winter has been hard on our roads, it's warming up. There's a hint of spring in the air. I know we purchased that hot box, Director Babinski. There's a parade around the city to find the potholes. I would point out one in particular on Willand Drive that was described to me by a constituent as a humdinger. I've not seen it, but I think humdinger means it's big. So I'll close with that.
It's a pond in the making. All right, thank you. Brings us to 19, which is future agenda items, other than the dog stuff. Any future agenda items? Okay, none. All right, brings us to item 20, non-public. We have none. Last on the agenda is adjournment.
Make a motion to
Councilor Gibson
adjourn.
Moves for the city council to stand in adjournment until our next regularly scheduled meeting, seconded by Councilor Parity Catanzaro. Thank you. Question for the council is an adjournment. If you're in favor, you'll state by saying aye. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying nay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ooh, I think that was two. Council will stand in adjournment. Thank you.